Ancient sands, heed my command and reclaim these relics of hatred!
Okay, everybody, so welcome to the X-Men 97 review for part 1 of Tolerance is Extinction, the season finale of X-Men 97. Y'all, there was a lot that happened this episode. When I tell you there was so much that happened, this was one of those episodes that showed me why people love X-Men the way they do. And it was more than just the fact that the episode itself was good. It's that the story was good. I don't even know. What I mean by that is, you know how sometimes you can get a really good episode of something where the story is meh, and then it kind of makes you want to like, okay, well, maybe I'll keep going. No, straight up, this episode took the story and it said, okay, you needed this, you needed that. Okay, I'm gonna give it to you. Do you need some intrigue? Okay, I got you. Do you need a family bonding moment? Okay. Do you need war declared? Yeah, I got you. Like, there was so much that happened. And I know I keep saying that, but as I watched the episode, I literally sat there in shock and awe. I had to sit there for about 30 minutes afterwards and process. And I'm not saying that to be funny. I'm a person who really gets invested in TV. I really get invested in what a story is as a whole. And then it makes me think about what the story has been up to this point. So this episode, especially coming off the heels of Bright Eyes and Life Death Part 2. And Remember It. I don't know how I forgot that, because Remember It is what happened with Genosha. And I just... Ciao. So let's go ahead and get into the plot. One of the things that's happening underneath all of this, and I say underneath because there's so much other stuff happening at the forefront that this is just something that's really exacerbating the situation. The world finds out that Charles is alive, that Professor Xavier is alive. And people are literally saying that they feel like the X-Men did it as a stunt. They feel like they were trying to deceive people so that they could garner some sort of empathy for the mutant cause, which it never would have even crossed my mind to think that. But then I have to remember they're already in this like very tender area where people don't even see them as human, essentially. Well, I mean, not as human, but as equal. Knowing that Xavier is alive makes people feel like, oh, y'all were just trying to fool us and dupe us so that we could... Girl, I am telling you, I was like, oh my God. But everyone realizes how bad it looks. It's not like it's something where it's a secret. It's something where they realize like, yeah, that's gonna be pretty bad. So people are outside like rioting against mutants. So everyone is trying to figure out why Cable couldn't stop what happened in Genosha. And Cable explains to them that the massacre in Genosha is one of those things in time that you can't change. And he says that he's tried to change it 1,000,000 times, but he can't. He actually physically cannot. And every time he tries to change it, he gets pulled out of it before he can do anything. So he's seen this happen again and again and again. And they're asking him, how many times have you tried this? And he's like, too many. He's just telling them like, I don't even want to get into that, essentially, because it's way too many for me to even feel anything towards it, essentially. But he's still trying because there's still that glimmer of hope. So he goes on to explain to us that this person named Bastion, now that's another point that I wanted to bring up. So Bastion is another point that I wanted to bring up because at the end of the last episode, it was revealed that he was the villain. Now, I didn't know who this man was because, like I said, I'm not an X-Men like fan, aficionado, whatever. So I did not know who this man was. Cable explains that Bastion uses everything that is happening right now in the future to his credit. Like he makes all these to his credit. Galen, what do you mean his credit, baby? To his advantage, and he makes these human sentinel hybrids, and they outnumber mutants. So in the future he makes the world into a utopia by advancing technology, but uses mutants powers to build that world so that the human sentinels can live their best life. Baby, I rewound that part about 15 times. And part of why I kept going back to that is I love fictional futures that are affected by our present. But I love that concept that, like, a decision you make or something that you do can lead to this either disastrous future, or it can lead to something that's beautiful, but it's laced in, this disgusting backbone. Knowing that mutants are basically used as slaves is like, what? And it was so, like, the first time I thought, okay, maybe I misheard that. Maybe I'm thinking like, okay, they're using mutants like they're employing them or something. But no, they straight up were showing us mutants who were being made to use their powers against their will. They were straight up just like in quarries, and they were like, one was above the earth. She was above the earth doing something. I don't know what she was doing. There was one that was fixing the Golden Gate Bridge with her powers, or with their powers, and I'm like, what? It blew my mind. The concept of that this man is setting this up blew my mind. So speaking of Bastion, we actually get his backstory. So they get a lead on where there's this facility, whatever else. Cable gets the lead, and him, Cyclops, and Jean go to this place. I forget what city, what state, I forget completely where it's at. But they go to this house, and they're like, this ain't no Sentinel facility. Like, nothing is being built here. Girl. So Jean gets this vision of who he was, right? And she sees him as a little boy. She sees him being pink, and he doesn't know what's going on. Like, why am I different? I can hear the machines talking, da 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 da. And he goes to his mama, and he's like, will I ever be normal? And she's like, you're perfectly normal. You're my little boy. Now, mind you, at the beginning of them getting there, they saw the mama, and she was like, my son told me that you would come and get me. I'm going to go pack my things. Please come help an old woman up. And I was like, okay. So Jean is seeing all of this. Y'all. Something called Nimrod, and I'm gonna have to look up what Nimrod is, because I do not know what that means, or who that is, or what it is. I don't know what Nimrod means, but apparently some like future thing, virus, substance, I don't know what it was, like crawled up this man's leg, and then him and his wife conceived a child, and because he had that DNA substance in him, it passed on to his son. And so his son was actually the first like human, like Bastion was actually the first human sentinel hybrid. He's technically the first one, and so he's trying to make others like himself. Ask me why, while they are in there and they are finding all of this out, why does his mama, this old lady, start click clack crackety crack, and we find out that she's a sentinel? Girl, you could have bought me for $1. Now, that's significant because at the same time that this is happening, y'all remember the blonde lady that's part of the UN, the one that was exercising on the bike and whatever, being sassy with Cyclops and eating him up low key? Girl, why is she working with Bastion and Sinister? Why is she working with Bastion and Sinister? My jaw dropped to the floor. I could not believe what I was seeing. And it's like, usually I feel like I could have picked up on that, but it's like I didn't even piece together that she would do something, that she was doing something like that. But she says that she did not know that Genosha was gonna happen. She had no idea that was part of the plan. That wasn't something that she would have even agreed to. All she saw was death and destruction and whatever else. So she finds out Sinister is basically working Bastion. He's just happy that he's able to use these people as test subjects. So Sinister takes us back to his lab, right? Why is this man experimenting on people? He is taking them, dipping them in this organic techno. I don't think it can be techno and organic at the same time, but in my mind, it was techno and organic, which was the whole point of the experiment. And he's turning regular people into machines, essentially. And he's like, no, they go live their whole life. They live, they're good, they're great, but it's eventually going to be activated. So he shows us these people that are, they might not even be aware that they have this in them. So, girl, at the same time that Bastion's mama turns into that sentinel, people around the neighborhood, like the whole neighborhood, turns into the sentinels, right? Okay, so you would think, okay, it's just in his hometown because this was Bastion's hometown. So he was just experimenting with the people there. Well, baby, you would be absolutely mistaken, because on the other side of wherever, Jubilee and Roberto are at the mall, people start turning into them there, gooped and gagged. I was gooped and gagged because what you mean? It's just people around the world that have been turned into these machines. That's not even the most of it. That's not like that's literally not even the part that made me like, I don't even know what it made me. It just made me something. It made me something. So at the X Lab, I call it the X Lab. Y'all know I like calling it the X Lab, the X Mansion, X Panties, X something. I like putting X in front of it. So back at the lab, the lady who was the news anchor, whose voice kind of freaks me out a little bit because she's always talking like this. Is there any room for a friend? So she brings Hank some cocoa. Girl, she trying to apologize to him and whatever else. He sees that something is wrong. Now, oh God. And this is after they're talking, whatever else. This is after some other stuff has happened in the show. He sees that the other people are starting to come up, girl, as the sentinel. So he goes to warn the team. Old girl stops him, and we find out that she is a sentinel as well. She says, don't. You'll ruin the surprise. I hit the floor. Y'all, when I tell you, I sat there in complete and utter silence. I sat there in complete and utter silence because I could not believe what was happening in front of me. She just knocked Beast out. Like, she literally knocked him through the floor. He was knocked out. He wasn't even no good. The other X-Men try to come at him. Come at her. She is just like eating them up. And then why do people from the surrounding area turn into these machines, and they come to the X Mansion, and they are literally having to fight these people off at the same time that Jean, Cyclops, and Cable are back in whatever land up there fighting those sentinels. And then you have Jubilee and Roberto in the mall fighting those sentinels as well. It is literally a full on attack. Like, it is full on, like, they're trying to do a massacre at this point, a mutant massacre, because they are activated by being around mutants. I am telling you, I was shocked. This was like a full scale gung ho. We are in it to win it. And okay, so Jean, Cyclops, and Cable, they're in the X-Jet. Some of the machine things, I guess, sacrifice themselves, and they bring the jet down. And then it's so weird because I feel like I feel like it was supposed to be a fun moment because Jean was like, Hank's gonna kill you. This is the third jet in the year or whatever. And I was like, is this the time for that? It was, I don't know. Like I know we had a lot going on, and I know that it was supposed to be like that kind of moment. Now I'm sure that there are some people who are X-Men fans that can explain that to me, and I would absolutely love for you to do so. I would love for you to do so. I did not understand the point of like that cheesiness in that moment because it was like she was telling Cable like put your seatbelt on and he's like stop telling me that you're not my mom, and it was just like the weirdest kind of moment to be doing something like that. And then they get down in this car, which is apparently a callback to I think the movie, the live action movie from back in the day or something like that. And it's a very cool sequence. Like they're driving through this tunnel and the Sentinels are trying to trap them in. And so Jean takes the wheel telekinetically because for some reason she couldn't scoot over into the, I guess she said, girl, I'm not doing that. And then Cyclops uses his lasers to cut through the tunnel and they go from there. It was a very, very cool moment. But it's weird because Scott is like, Cyclops is like, let's show them what it's like to go up against the Summers or whatever. And then Jean looks over and she smiles and she basically, she didn't do it, but she basically was like, yeah. And I was so confused because I was like, what are we doing? What is this? What am I watching right now? And not like it was bad, but it was more like in this moment in this moment why are we breaking this up with comedy? I don't know. It was very interesting. But I said okay. I said okay. I'll accept it. I'll accept it. I'll accept it. Cable is getting along with them for the most part, but it was still strange to me. So getting back to Roberto and Jubilee, I keep on to say Rogue. And Rogue has nothing to do with this, although we do see her earlier, so, there's that. So Jubilee is running away from the Sentinels, and the Sentinels know how to fly, and she gets upset, and it's so cute. She gets mad that they know how to fly. She's like, can everybody fly? So then my girl gets the bright idea that she's going to jump off a building and try to use her powers to fly. Well, it doesn't work because she didn't think it out. It was a good plan. It was a good plan. Roberto saves her because he's been practicing. And she's like, so you can fly too. And he's like, yeah, the only problem is I don't know how to steer. And this moment was cool because like his whole body was erupted into the solar flare thing. So that was very, very interesting to see for somebody like me anyway. So he crashes his mama's party because they were at the mall because earlier they were at the mama's house and she was basically telling them like, baby, mutants ain't coming up at her, like she was being sweet nasty with it, but she was like, baby, mutants, we're not doing that. That's not how this works. And Jubilee says you people, and she was like, oh, you people. So anyway, they crash mama's party for Genosha, right? It's supposed to be in honor and memory of Genosha. So everybody finds out that Roberto is a mutant. The Sentinels land. Roberto tells his mama, they're trying to kill us. The Sentinels look at each other like, okay, it's time. And they're like, we're not trying to kill them. We're trying to help them and take them whatever. Roberto's mama actually makes them go with them and closes the door after them. That woman is a piece of trash and she's going to burn in hell forever. And I'm telling you, I said, as soon as I saw that, I said, nope, sister girl's going to get her comeuppance. She is going to get her comeuppance. And when she does, it is going to be a glorious day. It is going to be a glorious day. So I brought up Rogue earlier. And during the fight earlier between the X-Men and the news anchor lady, Kurt was trying to make sure that Rogue was safe and he was trying to get everyone away from her. So not Lord Jesus have mercy on my soul. I don't say that this man was orbiting. He was not orbiting. He was teleporting them away. And I think it started to tire him out because he was huffing and puffing real bad. And when I tell you that those sentinels were tearing, not Magneto, were tearing Wolverine and Nightcrawler up, they were eating them for breakfast. I'm talking about them folks they were getting torn up. And the thing about the Sentinels that was scary was that they could like regenerate. You cut off their leg, okay, that's fine. I'm just gonna reattach it. You cut off the head, okay, fine. I'm just gonna reattach it. It was very disturbing imagery. I'm not gonna lie to you. So Bastion gets to the place. He gets to the X Mansion. He sees it in ruins, and then he gets a call from Sinister. I forgot to tell y'all earlier, Magneto was being held at the facility. And for some reason, Magneto is just in like a little speedo. That's not important to the story, but I just was curious, like, why? I couldn't quite figure out like why he had to be in a speedo. It was an interesting choice, and I wasn't complaining about it. Anyway, so Sinister calls Bastion and says and talking about the lady from the UN, that she let Magneto go. And she, earlier in the episode, when we see that Magneto was alive, she goes in and she's talking to him, and apparently he hasn't spoken since he was brought to the facility. And she's like, please cuss me out, do something. Like, I don't care what you do, but just please say something. You have to have something that you need to say. So she lets him out. And Sinister and Bastion are asking her, like, well, not Sinister, but Bastion is asking her, like, do you realize how stupid what you did was? Like, it literally means nothing in the grand scheme of things. What you did literally means absolutely nothing in the grand scheme of things. And she's talking about her experience in Genosha and seeing how the mutants came together even when they had absolutely nothing, and how it inspired her. And she said that what was one of the most disturbing thoughts that she had, that probably everybody had, was Magneto was right. And she's right. Because when she was looking at him earlier, she was looking at the tattoo that he had, the numbers, because, he was part of the Holocaust. Now, this is a very impactful moment for multiple reasons. She's looking at these numbers on his arms, this branding, and she knows what it's from. She knows what he has experienced, and she knows how he has tried to relate this experience to what is currently happening, and she understands the depth of what is going on. So imagine that you are horribly frightened that this person, this race, this species is, trying to eradicate you and trying to take over, and they need to be muzzled, they need to be kept down. And then you look at what they're going through and you say, they were right. And you realize just how messed up your mindset has been this whole time. Baby, my God. I mean, like, literally, I got the chills. I got the chills. So the episode concludes with us seeing Magneto in the midst of all the fighting. Everyone is fighting everywhere. Well, the episode doesn't conclude, but it's getting ready to conclude. Magneto goes to, I'm assuming it was like the North Pole or something. It was either the North or South Pole. I don't know how the planet works. But he goes to what I'm assuming is the North Pole, and the magnetic North Pole, and he uses his powers and he shuts down electricity all over the world. And when he does that, the human sentinels, they come down as well. And Wolverine makes the observation that Magneto essentially just declared war. And I was like, okay, we're in the thick of it. We are in the thick of it. And we see a bunch of mutants and beings that I don't know who they were, but you got that. I'm sure that was a very nice Easter egg for some people who are invested in X-Men and its world and its lore. So for those people, I'm sure that was a treat. For me, I was just like, oh, okay, that person will be cool. So at this point, you know, everybody's standing there, and Wolverine's just like, "Where is Charles Xavier when you need him?" And then a spaceship comes and crashes through the ceiling of the X Mansion, and then out pops Professor Xavier and his guyliner that he has on for some reason, and it's just so funny every time I see him because I'm like, where did he get the guy liner from? But anyway, and he's like, I hope I'm not too late. And then he puts his hand on his temples and he's like, to me, my X-Men. And then we see in the corners all the X-Men looking like, oop, I know you mind me. Y'all, I am telling you that this episode had me on the edge of my seat the entire time. And this episode was very successful at doing something that I didn't realize until afterwards. I think, like, I felt it, but I didn't realize what it was until afterwards. It made me very uncomfortable. It made me very, very uncomfortable. And I couldn't, I'm not going to say in a good way. I'm going to say in a way that I think it was meant to. It made me uncomfortable because I realized what I was seeing on my screen. You know, these creatures were trying to eradicate the mutants. That's what they were doing. They were trying to eradicate mutants. There's nothing more, nothing less. That is what they were trying to do. And all I could think was how scary it is that even though you have powers and even though you're able to do these, great things, I just couldn't imagine how frightening it must have been in the moment to be going up against these creatures. And it made me think, as a Black person, how frightening it is to be in a position where you can try to fight back, but you don't have the tools to actually fight what's in front of you. That is why I say, although I did not grow up watching X-Men the way some people do, I saw episodes of X-Men Evolution. I watched the movies. I saw X-Men 92, things like that. I never read a comic book. That is why I say I understand fully why people love this series. That's what I mean when I say that I understand why people love this franchise the way they do, and that they get so invested in the characters, and that people have probably read these comics for 50 plus years. However long it's been. I think it's been 50 years. I don't know. But I understand it now. I get it. This was frightening. This scared me. It intrigued me. It drew me in. It made me want more. I felt for these characters. I wanted them to be safe. And it made me think, what do you do when the people who save you need someone to save them? What does it say for how bad it is when the heroes need a hero? And I think it also made me really sit down with the hypocrisy of, they're here to replace us. So instead of letting them, quote unquote, replace us, I'm going to create this world where I can enslave them. I fear what they have because it has the potential to make me obsolete. So I'm going to force them to use that to help me and to build a better world for me. X-Men 97 hits very close to home. And I really do want to go back and read the comics. I know they do some wild stuff in the comics, but I want to go back and read it so I can have an appreciation for what got us to this. Because I've seen people say that this is the best installment of X-Men that they've seen. And I don't have anything to compare it to as a whole, because I've never, watched, I didn't watch the original series and I didn't watch X-Men Evolution to completion. Like, I never did. So I don't have that to compare it to. There are young people watching this right now that are going to go on to create beautiful stories, amazing media. They are going to go on to create something that this world has not seen. Even no matter what that is, it could be commentary, it could be their own series, it could be a continuation of this. There are going to be people in this world who create something beautiful because they were inspired by this story. That is how much I believe in this. That is how much I, as a person who is new to X-Men and the franchise, as a story and not just in bits and pieces of characters' histories, that is how much I see the potential in this and what they've been able to achieve. It has been quite some time since I watched something that made me uncomfortable, and I continue to watch it because I was that caught up in it. And I just have to say bravo. I'm choosing to do more commentary on the episode because I feel like that's where I thrive, is in commentary. And although I love doing deep dives, I don't feel like it would be right for me to do a deep dive into this because I don't know that much about it in the first place. So I could really only get into themes. I could really only get into certain aspects of it. So I'm just going to leave it kind of at like my surface level, like little recaps for you. I am going to go back and I'm going to read something. I'm going to read some comics that I can get my hands on. I am going to watch X-Men Evolution. I'm going to watch X-Men 92. I'm going to watch those things because if X-Men 97 can be this good, and this is the best iteration of it, I want to see how I can compare it to what has come before. And I want to know what led to this point. I want to know what brought us here. I want to know how good the story must have been in the past that this could be a continuation of it and it could take that next step with it. I am so excited to see what comes next because we have 2 episodes left. Parts 2 and 3 of Tolerance is Extinction. And I'm telling you, I'm expecting some great things. Like, I already know when I get to the season finale, my mouth is going to be on the floor. So y'all be prepared because y'all know when I be gooped and gagged, y'all know how I get. I think that adequately sums up how I feel about the show. And I think that our episode for today is done. I do want to take a moment to thank our patrons. I want to take a moment to thank our TikTok Live subscribers, everyone who supports me financially and emotionally. If you want to join the Power of G community, please feel free to head on over to my Patreon, Power of G. We have a whole host of new things going on. We have like our own little podcast now, but you can get more information on that there. And if you also want to support me, then we have a merch shop, and that should be in the description. So you'll be able to get that. Thank you so much for listening, and thank you for being here. And I will see y'all again next week for next week's episode. Bye.